Hi. So, I went to the movies before the whole fucking world shit the bed, and I saw The Invisible Man.
You need help. Adrian is dead. I went to his house today. He's not dead.
I have a pile of ashes in the box that would disagree with you.
He has figured out a way to be invisible.
Only thing more brilliant than inventing something that makes you invisible is coming up with the perfect way to torture you, even in death.
Before going to watch it, I decided why not check out the first two Invisible Man movies from 1933 and 1940 to prepare. They were fun. I don't really know why I did it, because in the end, this movie was pretty much its own completely separate thing. Still, recommendable if you want a sort of pulpy blast from the past. And it's interesting to see how old the effects are achieved. They're not really long movies. Check them out. Anyway, onward. Right away, this thing starts with a lot of mounting tension. It was pretty cine literate in this regard all throughout, and I especially liked how in the first act they showed the effect this abusive relationship had on Cecilia, the protagonist, throughout her actions, and not by actually having the villain be abusive on screen off the bat. It fit in well with the theme of the movie of us not really seeing what he was doing per se, but still knowing he was behind it. It made him feel like a constant menacing presence. Because if show, don't tell happens to be a good rule in storytelling, then imply, don't show works in spades when trying to plant that seed of uneasiness. I appreciate how they didn't fully go the route of, is she imagining this, as some movies tend to. Instead, we kind of just see things through the perspective of an abuse victim, and it's honestly mostly believable in the way that it plays out, and genuinely a show of some of the more horrifying elements of the film that ring true to real life experiences. I really liked most of the characters. Elizabeth Moss does a pretty great job at making us empathize with Cecilia, and the friendship that's explored between her and the cop and his daughter felt like part of a very natural, wholesome environment that a lesser movie would have probably tried to take into another direction, aka man and woman living together somehow means that they have to have sex. The constant threatening feeling of the villain was also very well achieved with camera movements and the framing, with negative space taken into account. It always made you feel like he was in the room when you didn't really know if he was. The screenplay was also pretty freaking genius. Pretty much every Chekhov's gun that shows up was, well, firing towards the end and throughout the runtime. It shows that this aspect was pretty well planned out. And the ending. I wasn't expecting it to pan out the way it did, and it might have muddled the pacing a tiny bit towards the end, but it was certainly original, which made me think that what I was expecting probably happened to be so because I was so used to seeing it in films of this type. So, yeah, it's a complicated way of saying it did its own thing, and it did it pretty well. If I had to point out negatives, there are a couple of characters I had a bit of an issue with. Not biggies, though. One of them didn't really seem to have any immediately evident motivation for some pretty fucked up shit they end up doing. It just seems like their description was character's name here, colon, a huge asshole. Very huge. And another, although totally necessary to the plot, I'll concede, was part of a particular scene that movies tend to do so fucking much, and I don't fucking know why. It's so annoying. I call it the this very important misinterpretation could easily be solved with one of us being a bit more insistent yet with a calm and collected tone syndrome. It's one of the more glaring ways it seems like the script cuts corners, but I'll admit it's not a mortal storytelling sin or anything. This is just nitpicking, but I kind of wanted to see a little bit more of Oliver Jackson Cohen because he's a pretty great actor. I mean, watch The Haunting of Hill House if you want to know what I mean. And lastly, there are some incredibly unrealistic things going on in this movie, but come on, like, are you here to watch a hard sci-fi movie or a remake slash reboot of a classic monster horror movie after the previous attempted remake reboot, whatever the fuck The Mummy was, failed miserably to start a cinematic universe? I mean, come on. Like, this isn't about the science, it's about the relationship between the characters and how abuse works. So I gotta admit, I watched Robbie Collins' review of this movie before making this video because I have incredible standards on how I try to be uninfluenced by others' opinions, and he mentioned how this movie invokes gaslight the two films from 1940 and 44 based on the play of the same name, which, by the way, inspired the very term gaslighting. So I checked out those movies, and I really see what he meant, actually. I mean, I'd recommend you check them out as well. I personally adored the 1944 George Cukor version because it had a really strong handle of rhythm and suspense, and it didn't blow its load as early as Dickinson's, which sounds a little bit wrong. It also had stronger performances. At least I felt Bergman's performance was excellent, and it made me care for her character a lot more. It made the thing feel a lot more empowering in a sense. I'll admit the ending dropped the ball a tiny bit, but hey, So I definitely recommend The Invisible Man 2020, as I like to call it. I mean, it has a nice ring to it. And also Gaslight by George Cukor. I mean, we have a lot of time to spare now, and I think The Invisible Man is on VOD right now, so, like, entertain yourself, man. Yeah. I kind of want to start doing more shit like this on this channel. I love in-depth analysis and discussion of films as much as the next guy, believe me, but I'm aware the market is saturated AF. So in a way, this is just a hobby and experiment for me, but I also want to try to steer clear of the more highfalutin video essays like, why Blade Runner 2049 sums up the human condition better than any other
Parasite,
film
Class
ever, or
Struggle,
The
Up, Down,
Lighthouse
Woo,
and its evident
Joker,
phallic
Mental Illness,
symbolism,
Taxi
masculine
Driver symbolism.
Whew. So I just want to have a good time and shoot the shit with you because I like serious discussion, but I don't like putting my head up my ass. And I hope I stay grounded that way as much as possible. So like, subscribe, make your voice heard in the comments, and if this entertains you, I'll try to make more. Take care in these trying times. We're all fighting an invisible enemy here. Get it?
Perfect.